Hey y'all, and welcome back to our Bible study series. Tonight we are going to study 2 Chronicles 24. So let's get right to it, okay? This is a long one, so we need a little bit of time and not much chit-chat. So, verse 1. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada chose 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash decided to restore the temple of the Lord. He called together the priests and the Levites and said to them, "Go to the towns of Judah and collect the money due annually from all Israel to repair the temple of your God. Do it now." But the Levites did not act at once. Therefore the king summoned Jehoiada, the chief priest, and said to him, "Why haven't you required the Levites to bring in from Judah and Jerusalem the tax imposed by Moses, the servant of the Lord, and by the assembly of Israel for the tent of the covenant law?" Now the sons of that wicked woman, Athaliah, had broken into the temple of God and had used even its sacred objects for Baals. At the king's command, a chest was made and placed outside at the gate of the temple of the Lord. A proclamation was then issued in Judah and Jerusalem that they should bring to the Lord the tax that Moses, the servant of God, had required of Israel in the wilderness. All the officials and all the people brought their contributions gladly, dropping them into the chest until it was full. Whenever the chest was brought in by the Levites to the king's officials, and they saw that there was a large amount of money, the royal secretary and the officer of the chief priest would come and empty the chest and carry it back to its place. They did this regularly and collected a great amount of money. The king and Jehoiada gave it to those who carried out the work required for the temple of the Lord. They hired masons and carpenters to restore the Lord's temple, and also workers in iron and bronze to repair the temple. The men in charge of the work were diligent, and the repairs progressed under them. They rebuilt the temple of God according to its original design and reinforced it. When they had finished, they brought the rest of the money to the king and Jehoiada, and with it were made articles of the Lord's temple, articles for the service and for the burnt offerings, and also dishes and other objects of gold and silver. As long as Jehoiada lived, burnt offerings were presented continually in the temple of the Lord. Now Jehoiada was old and full of years, and he died at the age of 130. He was buried with the kings in the city of David because of the good he had done in Israel for God and his temple. Verse 17. After the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and worshipped Asherah poles and idols. Because of their guilt, God's anger came on Judah and Jerusalem. Although the Lord sent prophets to the people to bring them back to him, and though they testified against them, they would not listen. Then the Spirit of God came on Zechariah, son of Jehoiada, the priest. He stood before the people and said, "This is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands? You will not prosper. Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has forsaken you." But they plotted against him, and by the order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. King Joash did not remember the kindness Zechariah's father Jehoiada had showed him but killed his son, who said as he lay dying, "May the Lord see this and call you to account." At the turn of the year, the army of Aram marched against Joash. It invaded Judah and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the people. They sent all the plunder of their king to Damascus. Although the Aramean army had come with only a few men, the Lord delivered into their hands a much larger army. Because Judah had forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, judgment was executed on Joash. When the Arameans withdrew, they left Joash severely wounded. His officials conspired against him for murdering the son of Jehoiada the priest, and they killed him in his bed. So he died and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. Those who conspired against him were Zabad, son of Shimeath, an Ammonite woman, and Jehozabad, son of Shimrith, a Moabite woman. The account of his sons, the many prophecies about him, and the record of the restoration of the temple of God are written in the annotations on the book of the kings, and Amaziah his son succeeded him as king. Wow, what a long chapter. This chapter I titled The Forever Roundabout. I don't know if you've ever done any, seen any videos or anything about, I think it's called the Magical Roundabout over in Europe, where there's this one center roundabout and then there's like 6 or 7 different roundabouts around it. So you can actually stay on this roundabout all day long. It is just crazy. But anyway, that's what I feel like when studying these kings, that we're on this forever roundabout, that this king over here does good, but then the next king does bad, and then this king over here does good, and this king might do bad, this one's bad. Anyway, it just seems like it's a forever roundabout to me. So that's what I have named this chapter. So the first half of the chapter, Joash was passionate about the temple. He was passionate about the church. He was a game changer, y'all. Remember, he's coming from the evil queen mother as the queen for 6 years, and all the evil stuff that she did. And now he has decided to rebuild the temple. So yes, he is a game changer. Then that's when we hit the roundabout and start over with the bad. There is a spoiler alert in verse 2. Let's go to that. Get to my Bible. Verse 2 says, Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. After that, he did bad. But we're going to start at the beginning. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. First of all, I know I said this last week, but can you imagine the pressure that would have caused? He was 7 years old. Being king at 7 years of age, I just can't imagine a 7-year-old as king. At this age, he would have required a regent. A regent is a person that is his mentor to help with decision making, because at 7 years old, he doesn't know what in the world. And that person was most likely Jehoiada. Have you ever known anybody that had a mentor? Maybe it was their parent, somebody they looked up to, and this person, they did good when that person was alive. But when that person passed away, it seemed like they just stopped caring. They stopped doing what was good. They stopped believing. Ever know somebody like that? Maybe it was one of you at one point. I mean, but maybe you're here on YouTube listening to my weekly devotions and seeking the Lord now after you've gone through this spell of not caring anymore, not doing what was right. I don't know what your situation is. Sometimes we get mad at God for taking people we love away from us. Y'all, that's normal. That's part of the grieving process. But don't let that anger linger. God knows what we need and when we need it. God knew He needed to take that mentor away at that particular time. And He knows that you'll be mad at Him for doing it. Remember, God knows everything. I can say that I am glad that y'all are all here with me. I'm seeking the Lord right beside you. I feel like God took my dad away way too soon also. And I went through that grieving process of being mad that He took my dad away. It's been 19 years now. 19, wow. 19 years. And Dad's birthday's coming up. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's what I'm thinking that is happening here in chapter 24. Joash lost his mentor. And now he's looking for another mentor. And he found one. But this new guy, he's not a good guy. We need to be careful who we choose to fulfill that empty mentorship in our lives. And it says that the officials of Judah came and talked to Joash. The officials of Judah. Here's my thoughts on this. These people are the leftovers from the evil queen mother. They come to King Joash and they make idol worshiping sound amazing. And he turns to that. Remember, they waited until Jehoiada passed away to come to talk to Joash. They knew if they came while Jehoiada was still alive, they wouldn't even get past the front door. But because Jehoiada was gone and Joash was seeking something, they were able to make it in to see the king and convince him that worshiping God was stupid. And yet again, God did send prophets to talk to the king. Let's look at verse 19. It says, although the Lord sent prophets to the people to bring them back to him, and though they testified against them, they would not listen. It just took those officials to come in and have that little meeting to make Joash shut his ears off from these prophets. They tried to warn him. But instead, he turned his back on God and decided to follow the others instead. It's like, y'all, worshiping idols is a drug. And that drug is so addicting that you can't say no to it. And you can't stop. Why is evil things so addictive? It's also consuming. And any other word you might want to think of. I've said it before, y'all, and I'm going to say it here again. God don't play. Look at verse 20. It says, "Then the Spirit of God came on Zechariah, son of Jehoiada the priest. He stood before the people and said, this is what this is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands? You will not prosper, because you have forsaken the Lord. He has forsaken you." This is Joash's cousin, y'all. He grew up with Zechariah. And he ordered his people to have Zechariah stoned to death, just because he didn't like what he had to say. And he was just the messenger of God. In this chapter, we don't know if God sent any other messengers to warn Joash. I mean, we know that there were people that came before Zechariah, but then Zechariah came and spoke these words, and then he was stoned to death. But I'm talking about after Zechariah. It doesn't mention any other people. And sometimes God won't send anybody else. One warning may be all that we get. And sometimes we get 0 warnings. Because you know what? Like I said, God don't play. Look at verse 23. It says, "At the turn of the year, the army of Aram marched against Joash. It invaded Judah and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the people. They sent all the plunder to their king in Damascus." Here's the kicker in verse 24. "Although the Arameans' army had come with only a few men, the Lord delivered into their hands a much larger army." God said, I'm going to drop the mic on these fools right here. They don't know what's going to happen. Oh, and it's not over yet. So they left Joash severely wounded after this battle. Get this. His officials conspired against him for murdering Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada the priest. And they killed him in his bed. Y'all, these are the same officials that talked Joash into worshiping idols. They were his yes men. They were part of the officials that agreed to stone Zechariah. And now they have just killed Joash in his bed for murdering Zechariah. What? I just have no words. I just have no words on that one. And then they buried him in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. These officials were harsh, y'all. These were the people that talked him into doing all of this stuff. And then they turned on him. See how fast the enemy can turn on us? But let me tell you one thing. If you trust in God and you do what is good with God, He's not going to turn His back on you. If you do something stupid and do something wrong, He's going to punish you. He's possibly going to punish you. But He's not going to turn His back on you because He is a loving God. These people here that are evil, that worship these other false gods, they turn in a heartbeat. They killed their king for doing something that they wanted him to do. Just blows my mind, y'all. And at the end of the chapter, we learned that Ahaziah, Joash's son, succeeds him as king. Are y'all as tired of this Ferris wheel as I am? Let's see what kind of king Ahaziah becomes in the next chapter, okay? I'm sure it's going to be an exciting chapter. So I guess I will see you guys on the next video. Bye. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the Bible. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.